Gods and Monsters, the almost rhetorical question. Toshinori stumbles upon an old shrine while walking home and unknowingly offers something up to a forgotten god. I don't, Izuku tilted his head. Leave, I mean, but it's been a long time since anyone offered anything to my shrine. You said that too, Toshinori said. I didn't offer anything, though. He cast a dismayed look at his broken shopping bags. Not unless you like yogurt. Toshinori had not fought his way out of hell barefoot and ragged, only to be defeated by something as simple as grocery shopping. The plastic handles strained until they were as thin as soba noodles dangling from his skeletal grip. He'd taken the shorter road home, but it didn't have seemed to make much of a difference. Grunting and uttering the occasional curse, he staggered through the countryside, nodding at passing strangers with a grin that bordered on politely unhinged. Good morning, he said to one woman as she passed by, and wasn't surprised when she passed by a lot quicker without a word. He had just rounded the corner when the first handle snapped, spilling its contents on the floor. Oh, for... Toshinori cut himself off before he could offend the wildlife, turning his eyes skyward. One of his yogurt pots rolled into the undergrowth, and the rest stopped in plain view, mocking him. Toshinori stepped out from the main path and dropped the rest of his grocery bags in a heap. They melted into each other, collapsing like wilting maidens under the shade of a tree. He picked up his spilled shopping, grunting and cursing at his aching back this time, and threw it all together before storming away. Not far, but over to the wall that lined the path, where he wouldn't be tempted to take out his frustration on a tin of soybeans. Wheat grew in the fields, veering left under the wind's gentle influence. The odd wildflower tugged at Toshinori's ankle, curling around his shins and snagging on the metal of his greaves. The path was lined with thin trees, and the cobbles were well worn, giving way to dirt and grass here and there. He ran his hands through the hedgerows, heedless of the nettles and thorns that cut his palms. Hell was a dark, dank place. It smelled of rot and tasted worse. The first thing he'd done many years ago when he finally fought 3 was sink his hands in the good greenness and clean soil, taking in great gulps of good, clean air. He took more now, ridding himself of the memory. The frustration had gone, and in its place was an old tiredness, a world-weary feeling that lived in his skin. He turned and made his way back to his shopping, eager to sit underneath a tree for a while, and stopped in surprise. There was a bench under the tree, a twisted slat of wood that was knotted with curious green flowers. But it wasn't any old bench, it was a bus stop. The bench was guarded by a simple wooden signpost, a faded timetable that had been tacked to the pole. A low-hanging tree had invaded the space, offering fruit to anyone that passed by. Toshinori took one, felt the weight of the apple in his palm, testing it as he sat on the bench. It gave a quiet groan, but did not give way. He could have sworn that half of this hadn't been there when he first arrived. Are you giving up, stranger? Toshinori almost choked on his first bite of apple. There was a boy sitting on the other side of the bench. He wore dusty shorts that showed off bruised, scraped shins and scuffed trainers that were trailing ragged laces. His hair was a mess, a place for birds to settle. Sorry, my boy, Toshinori said, glancing around. I didn't see you come along. Oh, I'm always around. The boy's smile faded somewhat, turning alarmed, and he flapped his hands a little bit. Not in a creepy way. I'm not following you or anything. I live in here. That's what I meant to say. Sorry, it's been a while since I've talked to anyone, really. Toshinori surveyed the boy, something niggling in the back of his mind. He seemed genuine, if a bit confusing, but there was a strangeness to him that matched the bench, the bus stop, the tree casting them both in shade. His eyes were the brightest thing about him. They watched Toshinori in return, skating over his face in a way that made him feel studied, but not judged. "My name's Izuku," the boy offered. "Izuku Midoriya." "Toshinori Yagi," he replied, turning the apple over in his hand. "You asked me something when you sat down." "I asked if you were giving up," Izuku said. "That's who I talk to most, see? People who've given up." "Ah," Toshinori said, beginning to understand. "Well, I have no intention of giving up, my boy." "Good. There are wolves following you, you know." Toshinori barked a harsh laugh. He knew all about the wolves, sometimes shapeless, sometimes hellhounds, sometimes wearing the faces of friends long gone, but always at his heels. They were demons given a physical form, his nightmares drawn to life and tied to him, always nipping at his ankles. He knew all about the wolves, but no ordinary boy should know about them. "I'll fight them when they come," Toshinori said. "I know they will come, but until then?" He hefted the apple to the sky, almost a salute, and took another bite. "I'll enjoy the moment, I think." He'd spent too long fighting without resting, never a moment's rest, never a minute to breathe, to tend to his aches and pains. "That's a good idea," Izuku said. He reached up, almost absently, and plucked his own apple from the tree. Where it touched his skin, the color deepened and darkened until it was a rich, sharp green. They ate together in the warm light. When he'd finished, Toshinori tossed the core into the trees, where the birds began to peck at it. "The last time I was personally sought out by a god, I died," he said conversationally. Izuku stiffened. He sat up straight, eyeing him warily. He let the apple fall into his lap. It was untouched, even though Toshinori could swear they had both been eating. "I fought against gods, and I fought for them," Toshinori said. "I won their battles, until I didn't. This is what I was left with." He hefted the hem of his shirt, leaving a dark, raw, and black, where the skin had been pulled in, trying to protect what wasn't there anymore. The boy's face went still and pale. Toshinori felt an inkling of regret at the sight, something he hadn't felt in a while. It was almost a relief to know he could still feel that. "It doesn't hurt anymore," he said, lowering his shirt again. "Gods gave you that?" Izuku said. "A monster gave me that. A monster who used to be a man and dearly wanted to be a god. To have there be no other gods, and to have all men be monsters. But it was a god who asked me to fight, and it was a god that killed me under his command, and a god that dragged me through hell and kept me there until I finally broke free." Izuku met his gaze steadily. "There isn't a lot of difference between god, monsters, and men, I suppose." And perhaps there wasn't, and perhaps there was a hidden depth to him, a godliness that not many could see. But Toshinori couldn't help but look at him and think, not a man, not yet. Only a boy with the world at his feet. There was still time for things to change, still. "I didn't seek you out, though, if that helps," Izuku added. "I always appear when people bring offerings to my shrine. It's polite." "Your shrine is a bus stop?" "Is that what it looks like to you?" he asked, looking around sheepishly. "The last person was here said it looked like a mess and that I should be embarrassed." "Should it not look like a bus stop?" "It looks like whatever it needs to look like, I think," he said. "It used to be a river, a place where I played with an old friend, I guess. But it dried up and the grass stopped growing, and they tore down the trees and put fences up, and then there was a wall and a forest. I suppose it makes sense to have a road where a river once was." "You say this like you haven't looked around here before, but you speak as though you never leave." "I don't," Izuku tilted his head. "Leave, I mean. But it's been a long time since anyone offered anything to my shrine." "You've said that too," Toshinori said. I didn't offer anything, though. He cast a dismayed look at his broken shopping bags. Not unless you like yogurt. Izuku hummed noncommittally. He stretched, cracking his neck, and swung his feet. They barely grazed the dirt. Toshinori thought, again, not a man, and not like any god he'd ever known, but a god nonetheless, and a boy too, and maybe that could matter if he let it. It's a place for anyone to seek refuge, Izuku said, so you only really offered yourself. Toshinori squinted at his grocery bags, still puddled on the ground. I'd admit I was struggling a little, but I wasn't aware that I was in need of something as dire as refuge. Izuku laughed and jumped off the bench. It seemed to take him longer to land, as though he was leaping from a swing and floating gently to earth, cushioned by the air. When his feet touched the dirt path, he brushed off his shorts and turned, extending a pale, freckled hand. There was a smile stretching across his youthful face, youthful and warm, and it seemed to sweep away every ache in Toshinori's bones. Yes, he thought, this could matter, if he let it. You never said what you were the god of, Toshinori said. Oh, I thought I did. Izuku ducked his head as Toshinori grasped his hand, but that smile was still warm in there. Well, I've had many names, and it's been a long time, but I've always been the god of getting back up again. What's up, bestie? It's me. I'm running from the FBI. And also assessments. Which is arguably the scarier of the two. But, anyway. That was a really good fic. I love that kind of vibe. All the, mysterious, super kind of overpowered, I guess, Izuku fics, but, subtly. I don't know. Super fun. I was gonna, do a whole thing, but I give up. So, have a good day. And do your assessments, if you have any. If you don't, you lucky bastard.